Hello, beautiful friends. This beautiful song and many other wonderful songs were sung by Karen Drecker. Now, I know that some of you know Karen. She lives somewhere down the road in San Rafael, California. If you do know Karen, let me know, because I think it would be so cool to invite Karen to our live events, because her songs are so healing. They are like mantras on repeat. And so I'm so grateful, so grateful. And I know that that is the portal to our divine self. And so we have spoken about the divine self. To me, I'm excited about the divine self. And I hope you are excited too, because nothing is better than your own divine self. You know, I met my divine self through a lot of effort before the year 2012. And so we have been through so many shifts. And I know that all of you came here to actually embody the divine self. It was so hard, close to impossible until very recently. It was so much effort that sometimes it would take many reincarnations to embody the divine self. That's why actually all of us got trapped in this system created by the being you see there behind the scenes, the orangey red guy. We had many names for this orangey red guy. And mystical traditions, you call that Satan. And so this is the time of revelation. This is the time to go back to Yogananda and listen again and again, the second coming of Christ. Also, if you listen on YouTube, there is a wonderful channel of a very truly enlightened mystic. And I don't mean intellectually. He actually accomplished enlightenment and embodiment of his divine self, John St. Julian, Baba Wamayama. If you don't know him, please look him up. For those of you who listen to John, put it in the chat. That is an example of actually a fully embodied divine self. So it's good to know that it's a possibility for all of us now. John also, when he was fasting, he got to meet the true Lord of this world. But again, that was a while ago, you know? So all of this now is changing. This dude who was holding this world in the cycle that actually was not even a cycle, it was recycle of our beingness. You know, you see, the Buddhists could see it too. All of this is now dissolving. The mission is huge. This is the mission for this year, 2024. Now, this will be building, right? Everything's been building up. And so I met my divine self, like many of you, through a lot of effort. And I want to go away from this picture. We want to look at this guy. This is you and me now. And so we have to look at the world. So the world was trapped. It was trapped and it was created to be a trap. And so the reincarnation was also just constant recycling of immortal beings who could not escape. Nothing natural. That's not what nature does. Nature doesn't do that. Nature is always evolutionary. She's always ascending. Even if she goes through distraction, she will create a new order. And that is actually the new you now, the new divine self. A big shift, of course, happened in 2012, but it seemed like nothing really happened on the outside here in this world. Now, I always share my cosmic knowledge from cosmic beingness, so being able to be in cosmos, which again, it's just all of us. And it's just a matter of how well we came prepared into this lifetime. And so I was seeing what happened in 2012, and it was a massive cosmic shift. It was the shift of all planets in our big solar system, all 144. And so all the planets shifted. And now the thing is that when it happened, it was actually on a spiral of evolution, which actually is the rainbow serpent of creation. When the rainbow serpent of creation rises, she becomes a dragon. And that means she becomes a winged serpent. I watched this because I had a question. I was like, tell me what's going on. Everybody talks about Ascension in 2012. I need to know. And so this is a big shift that happened. And then, you know, on the outside, not many things changed. But then the big change came. Yogananda announced it. He came and he said, watch out, 2020, it's going to be huge. We will be purifying the human genome. Think about human genome. Human genome is actually where we have been manipulated, hypnotized, where we froze into unconsciousness, where unconsciousness and our diminished lower human ego actually infiltrated into, where we repeated karmic patterns, where we were truly frozen in this wheel of karma, where we stopped rising. And so in 2020, no matter what we know about 2020 or not in this world, but from a spiritual perspective, this was our liberation. Liberation from ancient darkness. The ancient darkness you see here. People think Satan is not real, but every mystic, when they go through the process of their own liberation, which was us in the past, we all meet the being who trapped this world by reversing light so that light could not return to the creator. The original creator of this world is, of course, the divine creator. And so all of this is so fascinating, but I don't want to ever share anything that might not be useful. So, how useful is this? I hope this is useful. When we think back millions of years, we will only witness the world already trapped by this being that is actually of cosmic nature. This is not a being that originated on planet Earth. This is a cosmic being of enormous power, enormous proportion, and a very childish, kind of pitiful intent to keep creation away from the creator of all things. Now, you might understand if you went to kindergarten that kids can be like that. This is mine. I will not share it. And that's exactly how this originated. There's a being in cosmos who didn't want to share. There's a being in cosmos that didn't want things to belong to the prime creator. And so, how did we end up here? That's a great question. We came here for this process of liberation. The Buddhists, they knew it too. But when, our civilizations before us were here, they didn't have an escape. There was just no way out unless you become so unbelievably impeccable, like Neo in the Matrix, where nothing moves you. Neo in the Matrix, I know it's a violent movie, but if we don't pay attention to the violence in the movie, we will realize it actually is a documentary about this reality. It shows us what happens. Neo represents Christ consciousness. All the agents in the movie represent demons. And then there is the big guy, the one who created the Matrix. They call him the creator in the Matrix. But the thing is that is the trap. Smith, Agent Smith, all the demons, Agent Smith, the big Smith, of course, Satan. And this all should be useful. That means I know where we are, and it helps us to navigate the system. It helps us to recognize what we've been part of as humanity, what our ancestors had to go through when there was no ascension. Imagine, I mean, I admire the people who came here when ascension was not happening. It was not even an option, but now it is not just an option. It has been happening. It is happening, and it will continue to happen. So this is most exciting because until now, really until 2020, all we could get is the teachings about, guys, you are trapped. You will be reincarnated again and again and again because the karma is too big, unless you become fully liberated. And what did that mean? What is full liberation? It is when a person stops being a person and they fully download their own divine self into their being, and they reconnect themselves through this incredible structure which was completely broken. So if something is broken, imagine the effort to build this up. This was the science of Kriya Yoga. For those of you Kriya yogis, you know exactly what this is. It is magnetizing your spine. And, no one ever spelled it out, really. and gave us the details of what it actually means, because it was such a big mystery. It had to be hidden because it gives you superpowers. When you are able to reconnect yourself fully and completely, you become really the embodiment of your divine self, also of your Christ self. And so you become again free. And free from what? Free from the system that entrapped everyone. What was the likelihood of this in the past? 0.01%. What is it now for us? Every single one, 100%. Imagine the difference. So that's why this should be so exciting. In 2020, Yogananda, out of all the beings in cosmos, was the amazing being in charge of dissolving what you see here. So they call this the wheel of karma. Everybody's like, oh, it's so pretty, wheel of karma. Not pretty at all. Because what is it? This is looking at the earth as she was manipulated in her electromagnetic field with really a manipulated fourth dimension of the astral sphere that created the constant you going back, you have more lessons to learn, you going back, you made some mistakes, you going back, you have karma. That you see the outer wheel, that's what it is. It's not just that it's turning, that's also that there is a layer that used to exist around the earth, and it created a false reality even in the afterlife. Imagine. Profound. There was one time I was reading the last words of people when they were dying, and I started to see into the astral. What would be the last words that they said? And I remember some famous guy, his family was sitting around him. I'll have to look it up who it was exactly. But he started, he was in the dying process. The dying process simply meant until 2020, the person just leaves the physical body behind, but pretty much they go straight into the astral. And in the astral, they would be told, you're going back. And, maybe in decades, maybe in a few years, maybe in a few centuries, but really no escape unless they embodied the divine self. And this guy, as he was dying, he looks into the astral and he says, wow, this is a hoax. And he said, this is an elaborate hoax. Imagine. So imagine how all of this is now changing. People always told us suffering's not real, suffering's not real. The mystics, they said, oh no, suffering's not real. But it seemed very real, didn't it? Wouldn't you think suffering seems so very real? Again, second coming of Christ. I always want to say all the things I've seen in these realms, I don't want to claim if they true or not. I go to the second coming of Christ. I go to Yogananda to see if he spoke about it. And if he did, I feel confident that it's true. And so in 2020, Yogananda, actually, again, he was in charge of dismantling the trap in the astral sphere. He came to tell me one night, and he even said, come, let's go and help out. I'm sure he came to you too, whether we know it or not. We are here on this amazing mission. So, suffering, we have, pain on every level, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, da 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 da. And so, again, in the second coming of Christ, Yogananda explains how pain was created by this being who holds this world in his claws. Now, I met Satan several times in my life, and it was never pretty. But the puzzling thing is, it's supposed to happen to all of us mystics on the path of liberation. So it did happen. And, in this world, there's a lot of truth hidden in things we don't think that are important. But when you always look, like if you have a phone, right, what is the emoji from the devil? It's red skin. Why? That's so silly. But look at this guy. He's orangey and red. And I can tell you from first-hand experience, this guy has actually orange skin. And he is not alone. He's got a lot of, they call them the Lords of Darkness. They all existed in the fourth dimension. And so, as they were controlling the world, they were invisible to us. And really, I would say only the mystics really got to meet them when they were about to liberate from this, because that was not meant to be an option. Liberation was not meant to happen. This was really entrapment of the divine beings that are you and me, our grandparents, our parents, and it just went on and on and on. So imagine this incredible, exciting, exciting, exciting time when this is all dissolving, liberation is here. All that, we came here for is happening now. So now this is an old picture. Maybe the Buddhist monasteries will still be drawing this, but this is no longer it. So what is the new you? What is the new world? It's what we've been showing here all along, and that is the divine self is here. This is truly the liberation, and that's why every single one of us is experiencing this now. I mean, this is so huge. I'm working on many different things all at once, but one of the things I want to work on is having t-shirts, Yogananda for president. Not because it's silly and funny, but because we need to introduce new leadership into this world that is now dissolving more and more and more. Patricia just made the video and her vlog was about this new social order. That is absolutely essential because the old social political order was all based in those orange beings. This is a new world with new leadership, new civilization, as you know. We were told in Cahokia, when we went to Cahokia before the eclipse, start thinking big. Start thinking about the new social order, new civilization. And this is because now is the time. This is amazing. So, hopefully this was useful. It's useful to know this is a new world, this is a new you, and what has to dissolve is the enslaved self, which is your and mine and everyone else's old self. We all know the old self. So now, please do not engage with your old self except for be the big boss. And the big boss is your own divine self. You know, more will be revealed to us. More will be activated in us. The activations that happen is not someone doing something for you, it is your divine self activating you. This is a marvelous time where we are being activated, sometimes in our dream time. Sometimes we know exactly that it's happening, but it's happening. I can see it, you can see it, you can feel it if you don't see it. And so this is the good news I wanted to speak about. A few nights ago, you and me and all of us here on these Green Tower Zoom calls, we ended up in the same place in the higher realms. And it was magnificent. And to me, that was so miraculous. I got to see the ones I know in physical reality. So I've seen your face, I recognize you, but also I met all of you there with your, face, even though I've never met you physically. Everyone I could tell was on these calls. And I don't say it at all in any terms of like, look at us and this is so special. No, no, no. I just want to say this was miraculous and something incredible happened. So we met, all of us in these higher realms, and we were met or welcomed by these incredible beings. I would call them our cosmic parents. And because we have different cosmic parents, sometimes cosmos is not all just one couple of cosmic parents. This is all stepping down system as well. So I speak about, for example, Orin and Aben as cosmic parents. And so these cosmic parents, they always create through light, through intent. It's absolutely deliberate to create offspring, which we would call divine children, but of course, not the way that it's created here. And so we were welcomed by these incredible cosmic beings who came to actually do few things with us. Number one, they blessed every single one of us. Now, if you've ever received a real blessing, I don't know anyone in this world with that power, but in higher realms, for example, Yogananda gives blessings. And the way he does it, and plus he's in higher realms, I'm sure he did it when he was here, but I didn't meet him in the physical. But these beings are able to reach all the way to source, all the way into the brightest, most potent source light. And then they transmit it through their own hands into the disciple. And so they step it down in the most appropriate intensity for every single one of us, depending on what we need the most, because they know us inside out. And then they transmit it into our consciousness. Usually it is done through the crown and through our nervous system, through the tree of life within us. And they really make a huge difference to us. So I've experienced some Shaktipat here in this world. I cannot speak about any of it except for higher realms, when it initiates you into an accelerated state of consciousness instantaneously. And it immediately boosts your consciousness and ability to receive, knowledge and to remember who you are. So it's always a great, 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 great gift. And that's exactly what happened. Whether you are on this call now or you participated in the past, every single one of us received this. It was unbelievable. And then they set us down into this, divine classroom. And I love those. And so there's so many lecture halls, sorry, lecture halls in higher realms. And so the lecture halls, we sat down and we received knowledge. And it was a lecture that was taught, and it was about the divine self. And so here we are, we talk about it every day. And here's a beautiful image that we are working on with Daniel Holman, creating the divine self. This is just a draft, but we're getting somewhere because, it's obviously the violet flame all around you. And a lot of people, and Sanaya Roman, when she channeled Orin, if you worked, for example, with Orin, then Orin also described the divine self as in violet light. And so here it is, you shining through you. Again, I do recommend, The Matrix, because there's so many amazing, really, I would say, revelations within the Matrix. I don't know which one in the Matrix it is, because there's about 4 of them, but there is one where Neo is supposed to be fighting Smith. So light fighting darkness. And first it feels like you're going to fight it, and what tools you're going to use. But suddenly he goes through the embodiment of his own divine self. And he has a self-realization of who he truly is. Suddenly he stops. And if you remember, he pulls the darkness inside his own being. And his light, which is the living fire of God, transmutes the darkness. There is another fighting scene, right? The bullets being shot at Neo being the Christ. He embodied the Christ self. He's, what we would say, Christ being. And just he slows down and he just reaches out and he stops the bullets with his hands and they just stop. Of course, when you embody your divine self, you no longer are enslaved by the conditions of this matrix. And so that is what's happening through all of us. There is no conspiracy. Don't think about the old world, but it's good to know it was not an easy world, but it was also not a natural world. Again, Yogananda describes in detail how Satan reversed light so that light could not flow naturally back to the prime creator. Think about it. And then we called it normal. That's just how it is. So in 2020, I'm being activated through my own divine self, and it was happening every night, every single night. And some of you, we've been friends for a long time, so together we've been through a lot of amazing shifts. And so for me, it was activation of the human genome within, of course. That means liberation from the enslavement codes, which happened to all of us. And so suddenly it's being able to see into higher realms, and initially seeing also through the fourth dimension and seeing the realm that was kind of controlling this reality. So it's almost as if you could suddenly see into the realm that we call afterlife, but realizing that it was also false and not natural. So I'm seeing into all these realms, and I'm seeing something so puzzling. I'm seeing programs running through this reality. And I mean, I'm not a computer person, but you've seen what programs look like. And it was really coded. And I see this coding coming down to humanity that was not good. And what was it causing? It was causing suffering. And it was not that it was causing suffering in 2020, it was causing human suffering. Again, Yogananda didn't use the word program, but he called it vibration. He called it frequencies that were unnatural and artificially created to cause suffering, to cause pain. Yogananda describes how physical pain didn't used to exist, but it was introduced by the being you see here behind the scenes. And so imagine the profound, I don't know if to call it a hoax. I would call it pretty evil, of course, because that's what we ended up calling it. So, why is this important now? This year is the year when this has the incredible opportunity to completely end. This is part of our ascension, of course. That is returning the light back to its natural flow and removing all unnatural distortions within the field of the earth so that all beings here can be free. And we call it ascended and free. I was writing today a lot about the 11/11 event that is coming up for us. For those of you who will join us, we'll do an online portion, but also we'll have an in-person portion with the Hopi people in Arizona. And as I write, I like to always completely attune to the divine self. And the divine self said, this is not about, bringing heaven to earth. This is about returning the earth to heaven. And so we are returning, you and me, the earth to cosmos. Heaven is a nice term, but I don't like using it so much because really heaven sounds like the fourth dimension made pretty, just a little bit of satisfaction before they send us back down. And so it's all about cosmos. We are returning to the truth of our planetary consciousness, which is this world will plug in to cosmos again, which means you and me will gain once again cosmic consciousness. Cosmic consciousness has always been the goal for all mystics. Every tradition that was truly dedicated to truth, which is the truth of us being cosmic beings, it doesn't mean that we are aware of all the beings in cosmos, but actually it's about consciousness, being one with the creator that is manifested in all things as Divine Mother, being able to comprehend our oneness with all life. So this is a big story. And, again, if you remember why you signed up for this world, why you here, this is really the reason you said you've got all it takes to be part of something so huge. And so we are here, each one of us bringing, our own puzzle pieces, assisting everyone else to remember. And so there is great power within us that now needs to be accessed every single day, all day long, remembering. This is the truth of our being. This is the true alignment. This is the true resurrection through the alignment of the vertical and the horizontal axis within us. So this is, for example, the story, of crucifixion. This is the cross. You see, this is how we are resurrected. The resurrection is simply letting go of the old false self that was only identified with the fallen body, which also was created by the being that you saw in the mandala. Yogananda speaks about the fallen design of the physical body too. This is not our true nature. And so as we ascend through the body, we still will have a body. Because the body, not exactly this one, but your light body is absolutely important. And that means you exist within cosmos. You exist within cosmic creation. Being the big boss is really important right now. Your big boss is you as your divine self. The little ugly devil, usually it was the lower human ego. And sometimes it was very intelligent, and sometimes it was not so intelligent, but it was always an ugly lower human ego, as long as it resided in the lower dimension of our being only. And so true intelligence comes from being the divine self, true peace, true love, true illumination. All of it is within the divine self. It's so easy. These days, so easy. You ask and it is given. This is the law of the divine self. The law of the divine self that is now reconnected through all of us, but needs to be exercised. It's like a muscle that atrophied, you know. It's a muscle we simply haven't used. And so now it is simply every day, do your breathing, do your alignment through your spine, focus on the third eye. Just do these very simple practices and let it click in. It actually clicks, and some mystics could hear the sound of clicking. It does click in. And even if you don't hear it, don't worry about it. Intention and calling it in and working through it. Remembering that the personality self is the illusionist. The biggest illusion ever was actually manifested through the personality self that disconnected from the divine self and became so arrogant. Even if you say, I'm not arrogant, so many of us probably would say we are not arrogant. But from the perspective of the Great Spirit, humanity did become arrogant because they no longer every day acknowledged divine will of the Great Spirit. And so they thought they could do it themselves. And I'm going to say they so that you don't feel like I'm talking about you. I don't want to talk about you. I want to talk about in general. So when humanity disconnected from the divine self, they disconnected from the Great Spirit, from divine will, and then they thought, let me use my own will. Let me do it myself without the assistance and the flow and the light and the love of the Great Spirit. And so that's why the free will actually was the will of the lower human self, not aligning, not asking, not receiving. And I mean asking and receiving in terms of also inspiration, consciousness, the love and light that is needed to move us forward, to inspire us to be creative. So you see, does it make sense? The dysfunction is ending, the function is here, but now is the question, how do we make it work? So how do we function in this new world? You know, a lot of people will still be teaching the old stuff, and the old stuff might be nice, but we want to be super effective. And so to be effective, we need to know this is a new operating system. You will never, ever suffer or have pain in any way if you every day connect with the divine self and let that be your will. Let that be your guide. Let that take you to the next level of you. You know, it's like it has to dissolve. Illusion has to dissolve. And so we need to be so incredibly focused. So as we were in higher realms together a few nights ago, we were told to be incredibly centered in the divine self, no matter what. And that means truly, no matter what. I've shared in the past this past life that I had as a monk in Tibet. and I was being shot, I think. I think that's how it all ended. But as I was being shot, just before the bullets, I guess, were fired, I don't even know that they were, because I only focused on the light of the divine self within. And there I remained. And then everything exploded into more light, and that's all I know. And so to me, this, shows just the story itself, the power that we have within us. If despite all danger, we focus within, we focus within. And if you focus within and again and again and again, it's going to be a muscle that really watches for you. It will really work for you. It really works for you. And so throughout the day, just going back in, knowing it's super easy as long as you know the divine self is connecting and you are connecting, and it's the work that we do here. And so asking and receiving is important, So whatever solution you need now, your divine self is the solution. It has every solution to absolutely everything. It doesn't have awareness of a problem. This is the beautiful thing. Again, we need to learn not to try to figure things out through our lower human mind when the solutions always exist in the divine self. So as long as we have, and this is really important, let's say there's a problem and you say, I've got a problem, I've got an issue, I've got a difficult situation. Immediately shift into your divine self where the problem doesn't exist. It doesn't exist because the divine self never becomes a problem. It doesn't know the problem, but it always is the solution. If that makes sense, the divine self is like a library of all things that are successfully solved already. And so then we have to bring the solution down through us, because in a way, and I truly believe that that's why we're here, we are the solution bringers. So I see a problem, for example, so many in this world, right? I think about all the children in this world, and I'm sure you do too. I think about people who are experiencing war. I'm thinking about people who are in situations where people just really kill each other. It's very unfriendly. And so, knowing all of this, of course, you are here, the observer self, and you go like, "Oh wow, I observed this." Quickly, we go to the divine self, and when we ask, what is the solution for the thing I just saw? Oh, solution is peace. Solution is safety. Solution is friendliness. Solution is oneness. Solution is love. Solution is consciousness. And you go shopping into the field of your divine self, where only great things exist. And then you bring it down with you and you deliver it to this world. You deliver to this world. But it has to happen through you, because that's why you're here. That's why we're here. You can think of it as a game. It's a very challenging game, but it's a really fun game when we master it, because then, of course, you are constantly pulling miracles from the quantum field, and the miracles are within your own divine self. Test it out. The key is to be super focused. So let's say in these higher realms, we know the earth will have to go through some earth changes. It's absolutely her way of cleansing her own old self to actually remove her own skin. So Christ's self is always fearless. And we are actually working at the level of divine self. Divine self has no fear, knows no fear. It was Yogananda, he embodied fully his divine self. Jesus fully embodied his divine self. There is no room for fear, because what would they fear? Could they fear the Matrix? It's like in the Matrix, the movie, the fear of the agent Smith. If one fears the agent, one is trapped. When one becomes like Neo, one is liberated. So, at the level of the divine self, all all is well and all is safe because the divine self is always pure safety. There is no danger. Danger doesn't exist. And so, let's say there's an earth change going on, and who is the one in survival? It, of course, is the personality self. And so we want to be always reasonable, but no matter what, the number one thing to do, no matter what's going on, is just an example. Go to your divine self, seek safety within, and then do whatever the divine self is guiding you. The earth changes, they of course came at the end of Atlantis. I want to do an event where I will explain all the incredible documented stories that so many of the native people of this world have about the end of Atlantis. Now, Atlantis, people might think Atlantis, that's Atlanteans, but the Atlanteans, they were the native people of this land. For example, the Hopi people, the Zuni people, all these nations, the Incas, they went through the end of Atlantis. Atlantis had many colonies on many continents. And so they experienced the end, the dissolution of their world. Not completely, but very much, almost. But it was partial, obviously, because we still had beings who survived. Now, did they survive through survival? Did they like try to survive, run away, go up on a hill? No. They were connected to their divine self, and it was their divine self that was guiding them. They actually, for example, the Zuni people here in the US, they have incredible stories about how the rainbow serpent came to show them the way, how the rainbow serpent showed them where to go, and how she just guided them. Same stories of Quetzalcoatl, right? That you maybe heard about. Again, about starting a new civilization. So not exactly survival, but just guided. So same thing for us, learning deeply, deeply to go, yeah, the Mayans, same thing. All these civilizations, they were connected to the divine self. And so they knew exactly what needed to be done. The Hopi people have incredible stories. They have stories about ships that came to save them and save them again, just take them somewhere else, let them start a new civilization. And I mean ships like spaceships, no, no water, just space. So I'll collect all these stories so that we can share them. It's pretty amazing. Because of course you can penetrate other dimensions. That's the whole point, that you don't have to be where stuff is happening. You can instantaneously go into higher realm. So we have a few more minutes. So many of you will be joining us, which I'm so blown away about. I'm just really, really blown away, honored for this 6-day intensive. Today we are closing registration just so that Orin and Daben can make sure everybody got the downloads if you didn't have them. And so I will be responding to emails tonight as well. There is a delay. We don't have an automated system, so please have patience. Basically, when you sign up, I send the names, the email addresses to Orin and Daben, and their absolutely wonderful admin, Greg, manually makes the downloads available and creates the account. So that's the delay. And this is going to be life-changing. And even if you cannot participate, always know that it's all quantum, which means as we are lifted up, all life is lifted up with us. The registration is still open for 10 minutes, I think. It closes at 6, just so that we have time to deliver all the audios. So that's one thing. And again, this will start on the 24th and it will be happening for 6 days. To me, it's a retreat. I have nothing else planned during those days for myself. Just want to be in meditation with you. And again, we will be meeting at 11 a.m. Pacific. And for those of you who want to repeat or cannot make 11 a.m., also 5 p.m. Pacific will be just repeated. each event will be about 90 minutes. So again, think about it as a retreat of transformation, even though it is online, but that's what's going to happen. So last night I had an out-of-body experience I wanted to speak about a little bit that had a lot to do with this being, and that had a lot to do with this. I'm going to share it a little bit, if you don't mind. I actually was thinking, everybody shares now near-death experiences, but I don't hear many people, or at least I'm not aware, who share out-of-body experiences. I just know two. And out-of-body experiences, let me know in the chat if you've ever had an out-of-body experience. It's an experience that truly is puzzling, and it is something you cannot miss. It is when your etheric, so many of you, wonderful. So So for those of you who've never had one, but also for those of you who've had one, I learned how to trigger them, because they do happen spontaneously for people. So I know a few people who had spontaneous out-of-body experiences. And for me, it really did happen spontaneously one day. And then I was really kind of focusing on how did it happen? What did I do? And what I was doing, I was chanting Om in my third eye, and I was focusing on myself as if I was my spine. Okay, so many out-of-body experiencers. Amazing, amazing. And also with ETs, of course. There's so many layers that we enter. And so anyway, so some people, think that an out-of-body experience is imagination. Some people think it's traveling with your consciousness. It's none of that. It's truly an experience in which your physical body and your etheric body disconnect, and your consciousness and awareness shift. And they shift into the new you, which is then your etheric double. And then the new you has many more abilities and skills and possibilities how to move through time and space and dimensions and worlds. Amazing, amazing. In a way, it is a controlled near-death experience. So I try every night when I'm not sleeping. I found it's the best way to do it. And there are days when I succeed, and then there are days and weeks and even months when I don't succeed. So I guess it's not meant to be easy to leave the body. But there are nights when I succeed. And so last night was one of those nights. So I peeled out, and normally my intention is always, I want to be with Divine Mother, I want to be with Divine Father. Again, doesn't always work. But last night I had a new intention. I thought, you know what? I've never asked, and again, this is just giving ideas. I've never asked to actually fully see and meet and sit down with my divine self. And I thought it would be so cool to be face to face with the divine self. So came out of body. I rolled out of the body. I pushed a little bit. You always need a little push eventually to completely let go of the physical. So the first thing, I always fall on the carpet. Unless I'm floating out, I fall on the carpet. So okay, I fell on the carpet. My etheric double, right? The etheric double falls on the carpet. Then you need to get up and start walking around. And so I'm walking around, and I suddenly see my divine self. And my divine self represented itself differently from any other time. Normally, it's a being of light that doesn't have a face. It's usually just a big field of geometry, something very similar to this. But this time, the divine self was like a child, but not inner child, but very much a child. It puzzled me so much. And I realized that the quote from Uncle Jesus, be like children to enter the kingdom of heaven, would apply to the divine self being very much childlike. And I also thought about the Taoist teachings about returning to your original face. And I thought, oh, maybe that's what they mean, returning to your original face, being really the childlike quality of your divine self. So I always speak about the divine self and then the human being here, right? As a different two things, the personality self and the divine self. And as I was actually holding my divine self in my hands, I also saw all that still is between me and the divine self. And I call it kind of the ugly scars of the personality self, where the wounds might still be between us and the divine self. And it's not that divine self wants to be disconnected from us. It's actually the opposite. The divine self wants to fully shine its light through us. But if there is anything between us and the divine self, we will still have basically not full embodiment. And so I was looking at that and I thought, wow, after all these years doing all this work, I still see there are some scars, some wounds that are between me and my divine self. And then suddenly this, as when you're out of body, you have different consciousness, so you operate differently. So I laid the divine self as the child on our bed, and this huge love came out of my being. And it was just like flooding the child, flooding the divine self with my love as the personality self. And suddenly all that was between us started to dissolve, and the connection became completely clean and clear. And so the umbrellas of the human self were dissolved in love. And of course, I'm not telling this story just so that you hear my story. I'm telling this story so that we know the power of love. The power of love. The difference between the higher self and the divine self is pretty much the structure. It's like saying, here is my leg and here is my head. Here is my shoulder and here is my arm. They are different parts of our multidimensional being, but the highest part of us is the divine self that was not accessible to us until really recently for all of us. So the power of love, even at the level of this little person down here, was able to dissolve all the things between us and the divine self. And so you know yourself as love in this world. You know yourself as someone who loves, is loving, is kind. And that, even though we are in our personality self, is a real divine power. And that was the transcendent power of love I experienced last night that is within all of us. And I thought, how wonderful, that power of love. Everybody told us love is the key. Yes, it is. What does it do? It opens the portal to the divine self fully and completely. So my experience then continued. So I embodied my divine self, even though I was out of body. And then I had a new intention, because intention is really what carries you through time and space. Doesn't always work, but it works sometimes. And I thought, I'm going to go and visit the Grand Canyon. Now, I've never done anything like it before, except once when we were in Mexico. But when I went to visit an ancient site. But I thought, we will be a small group of us. Hopefully, you will join us on 11/11, invited by the Hopi Nation. We will be going to the Grand Canyon not as tourists, but we will be going on a mission. And not just the Grand Canyon, but we will be also invited to the Hopi land and to visit several very sacred spots on the land of the Hopi. Now, I have a very deep connection to the Hopi because this is a long story, but maybe you heard it. I have a grandmother from the stars who has been guiding this lifetime here since I was a child, and she is from the Hopi Nation. And so I thought, we have a mission. I want to know every detail of this mission. And so out of body, I traveled. And as you know, out of body, you can go anywhere you want, really, in this world. And so I ended up at the Grand Canyon. I was looking at the Grand Canyon asking, what? I know it's beautiful, but there's a mission here on 11/11. What is this? And suddenly I saw this being as it influenced life on earth, as it influenced our experience of life, as it introduced the unclean heart into this world. And as the unclean heart, it took over humanity in many cases and created really what we would call pain, suffering, and evil. And so I saw something so incredible that had a lot to do again with the power of love. So in the past, our operating system would say, here is evil on the left, here is something bad on the left, here is unconsciousness on the left, here is suffering and pain, here is a bad person on the left, here is a demon on the left. And we would, in the past, maybe say, well, I'm an angel, I'm a good person, I don't like this other person, this is not good, evil and good, angels and demons. And it didn't create a solution. I saw that this was not the solution, but that this actually was the perpetuation of the conditions, the good, the bad, the demons, and the angels. And so, as I was in my out of body state, I traveled to the Hopi land and I looked at all the sacred places we will be visiting, and I came back to the solution. And the solution was presented very, very clearly and very beautifully. It is the power of love that can integrate. It is the power of love that is not separating itself from. It is the power of love in the middle, which is Christ. This is so huge. I don't know if I have the vocabulary to explain it well because it's so fresh from last night. But I saw the power of the divine self to be the one who integrates all things into oneness, not through separation, denial, and pointing, not through fear, not through distancing from, but just by being love in the middle. And then all that needs to integrate is transmuted by that love. Now, to me, this was huge because I saw this as a mission that we are invited to fulfill this year. And then, of course, I've been making Patricia Coda Robles's videos. And of course, in the past, you surely saw the videos where we are always talking about loving life free, loving our fallen brothers and sisters free. And of course, that to me was what I experienced last night, that this is the mission for now. And not sending love to the demons. That's not how it goes, because that still says, I'm here on the right, you are on the left. I'll send you love because I so pity you, because you're the dark one, I'm the light one. No, it is simply integration through love. So I saw in the Grand Canyon how, in a way, you would say the fall happened through this separation between the angels and the demons. I'm just gonna call it angels and demons because we are familiar with the term. We can call it good and evil. So in this case, the good that you see here on the right is not really good. It is also unconscious because it separated itself from that which is evil. It's not about becoming one with it. That's also not a good idea. But actually, yes, Lynn, the Dark Crystal, that's it, the movie again that you sent me. Exactly. And so it is stepping into your true essence, which is your divine self, which is just like what we would call, an avatar, who is all love, and there is nothing else that can actually exist around it. It doesn't take sides because it's always centered in love, in light. It doesn't need to separate itself, point at, send this, send that. It is all love. And as all love, it integrates all that is not love into itself, and it becomes all love. And so it returns back to the prime creator, and then all that we've experienced here is actually then transfigured and transmuted through the power of love once again. Absolutely amazing stuff. Yes. And so it is. And so this is our last event in this lunar cycle on these free Zoom calls. I will keep on doing these, of course, free Zoom calls as long as the mission is here presented to us. Everything is always posted on YouTube, and this will be posted on YouTube as well. If you want to read a little bit about our mission in 1111, and if you are interested, it will have to be a small group and a very focused group. And this is, very different type of event. I'm not in the business of selling events, but we are in the divine business of fulfilling some missions. And so this is the next mission. If there is no mission after this, there will be also no events. So this is the same, I would say, the same way of operating as Patricia Cota Robles. When the mission is done, it is done. When it is time to complete, it is time to complete. And so who knows? To me, this is the upcoming mission, of course, that is going to be exceptional. And Patricia also will be joining us online for the 1111 event. And so it will be similar to what we did last year. So last year we were aligning the axis of the world, and this is taking it to the next level. And so thank you so much for being here. Again, if you are part of our 6-day intensive with Orin, then that will start on May 24th, which for us here will be a Friday. And the times will be, as you know, 11 a.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. No need to participate twice. And of course, if you already have this album with Orin, then you can just listen to the transmissions anytime. So thank you so much, as always, and many, many blessings.